G'day, guys, and welcome to the Centre Bounce, where today we will be predicting all of the DPP changes across each of the lines. Stay tuned. Big Jay, how's it going today?
I'm good, mate. How are you doing?
Yeah, good. I've got our binoculars out, and we're gonna go looking into the future here today. So, really excited.
Yeah, today's video is a bit of a different one than what we're used to. We've been doing all these videos about players on our radar, but now it's more positional players on our radar for today. So, hey, look out, check all the training reports. We know how hard it is to DPP. Well, we know how hard it is to plan our forward line because we just don't have the forward line players. So to be able to get some DPP predictions in, maybe put someone in the midfield that you think is going to get forward, or someone in the defense who you think, hey, look, I might be able to swap these players around. Today's video will kind of help us out with that.
Absolutely. And a lot of this information that we're going to be using, as you say, is from training reports, as well as various news reports as well. So we will kickstart things off with the first guy who we're getting our information from the media, and it has been widely reported now in this preseason that Tom Stewart will be featuring more in the midfield for Geelong in 2024, which would indicate that we could have a defensive mid Tom Stewart this year.
Yeah, 100%. Remember, guys, before we kind of crack into everyone else, DPP changes, I believe, unless they've changed it from next year. And we'll find out the rules in end of January when Supercoach opens. Will be round 6, round 12, and round 18. So a lot of these guys, if they play a lot of this extra position in the first few weeks of the season, teams like to trial things out, Joe. Geelong might be like, hey, let's give Tom Stewart bulk mid time for 4 or 5 weeks. Bammo, Tom Stewart, def mid. Yeah, 100%. If this guy played mid, mate, it would make our Supercoach teams very, very interesting next year.
That it would.
This year, not even next year. This year.
Not even next year. We're in 2024 now, mate. I wrote 2023 at work a couple of times today. I had to fix myself. But yeah, now Tom Stewart, he's looking very good. I'll be keen to see how his body holds up in the rigors of the midfield. But as you say, he doesn't have to play all 6 weeks. He just has to play enough in those first 6 weeks to get mid status. And then Bob is
35% game time as well. So can still play more than half in their normal position and then rotate through the midfield, defense, or forward line.
Yeah, exactly. So we'll move then to our next player, and that is Jack Sinclair.
Yeah, so he actually had DPP last year, and a lot of us, had the players swapping around, things like that. So we're predicting that he's going to go back from the defense, like he's selectable now, to go back to more of a midfield role. He was quite good in that position for times that they used him. They used him as that transitional player to the forward line, similar to what he does in the defense when he's got the ball. So I think he might actually line up for a few more centre bounces doing that during the regular season. And he's a bit of a leader on field for them as well. So something that they kind of desperately need.
Yeah, exactly. And they could end up last year was the first time that they started to give a bit more responsibility to
Wanganeen Miller.
Correct, Wanganeen Miller. I don't know why I put to say Kitty Coleman there. To Wanganeen Miller, who we sort of predicted in the preseason last year that this guy was going to be given a lot more responsibility in the back line. That's what we saw, especially later on in the year. So you never know. Him and Hill could be given more responsibility in the back line, which could see Jack Sinclair spend more time in the midfield. Regardless of where he plays, he is an incredible accumulator. And maybe they want more line-breaking ability to get that ball forward quicker to feed King, who hopefully will not be injury-riddled this year. It's a big if, but if he can stay healthy, then he could be one of the best forwards in the comp.
Yeah, I mean, Cubs and coaches love pace through the midfield, and Sinclair's got that for days, so I think it's going to happen.
Yeah, agreed. Next player off the mark would be Harry Sheezel, your boy, playing there. He won your best and fairest in his rookie season. That's pretty impressive.
Yeah, he's a bit of a crazy player, this boy. From all training reports, and we kind of learnt this a little bit last year, but from all training reports at the moment, he's playing that kind of halfback role in the back line, but rotating and playing through the midfield as well. So could end up with an early DPP, similar to what happened with Dacos as well last year, and why we have Dacos now as a dual position player. The club's kind of molding him a little bit off that year and off the progression of that player as well. So don't be surprised if Harry Sheezel gets DPP early.
Mate, I'm really keen. I'm really hoping that happens. I got him in my side now. I think that's a bit of a spoiler alert. Actually, by the time this video comes out, people would have already seen my team reveal.
Mm-hmm.
All good. You would have seen. Sheezel's in my side now, and I'm looking forward to seeing this guy get some DPP. We move to the next player, and that is Hayden Young, who, again, widely reported will be featuring a lot more in the Fremantle midfield. He's come out. He's also confirmed that he's training with the midfielders throughout this preseason. He had a 4-game stretch at the end of last year where he performed incredibly well. You'd imagine that there would be some upside to this selection by actually committing to a proper preseason with the midfield group. So it seems very likely that this guy, at his price point with his role, should get mid status.
Yeah, and I think a lot of us in Supercoach are actually picking him in the defense line just because he's been touted to play a lot of mid. And obviously, if you're around the ball, if you're playing mid, you're scoring a lot more than just kind of like a general defender role. So that's why we've picked him. That's what the reports are showing. And that's why we selected him to be one of the players to move from the single position to the depth mid position.
Yep, exactly. And also from the same team, the next player, Heath Chapman, it's also been reported that he's also going to have a bit of a moving out of the back line onto a wing. So that also means that you could have a DPP on the cards. Yeah,
it's I think Freo has a problem where they've got so many good players now that they're just trying to play everyone somewhere where they can play them. They lost Griffin Loeb, they kind of lost Darcy Tucker and a few of these other guys because they just wanted players with more opportunities, right? So how can we get these guys on field? Griffin Loeb was relegated to the forward line. Chapman looks like, with his aerobatic capacity, then he might get a bit more running, and that's why they've kind of touted him for that wing role, especially with Henry kind of leaving at the end of the trade period.
Yeah, exactly. So a lot more responsibility. That back line, oh my God. The more I'm seeing about all this, the more I'm feeling really tempted to get Luke Ryan into my back line with all these players leaving to get mid status. It's just like Luke Ryan's just like, oh yes, it's all coming together.
Oh, mate, it's great.
So those are all the defensive players, the players that are currently selectable in the back line that could see themselves get a version of DPP. We now move to the midfield players, and we'll start off with Zack Butters, Big J.
Yeah, he started off with DPP last year, I'm pretty sure. And those players that were lucky enough to select him in their forward line, mate, they loved it for the entire season. I didn't have him. It really ticked me off. But one of the reasons why he's on here, similar to another Port Adelaide player that will show a bit in shortly, is they have to rotate through somewhere. These guys are still young bodies. I don't think the midfield is going to be enough for them. And it might not be, a 90-70 split or 90-10 split through that midfield. I reckon they're going to get pretty close to be able to having DPP, especially earlier on in the season.
Because they've got other midfielders. They've got Willem Drew, for example. They've got Horn Francis. They've also
Wines
got
and Boak are still there. It's not like
Wines
those guys
and Boak with Rosie as well. So you can't have too many people in the kitchen. Someone's got to play somewhere else. So it's very likely, as you say, with the rotations that he could end up playing just enough forward. Plus, it also helps that he's a really damaging forward as well. When he's in that forward 50, he can do some exciting things and find the big sticks to win games for Port Adelaide in the clutch. So I would not be surprised if Zack Butters gets forward status. Be greatly appreciated if he does. We then move to your boy, LDU. I know you yourself also reckon that he's going to get some potentially some forward DPP, because I think you were hearing something about they're training him to have some more forward craft.
Yeah, so North Melbourne players, especially LDU, we're trying to rotate so many guys through that midfield. We've got Sheezel, who we're talking about coming from the back line. There's McKercher in a similar position as well, but there's so many forwards that are trying to get played through that midfield and forward that the club's just training up LDU to be a forward as well. Hey, maybe similar to a Dunkley and other players where they just rest in the forward line instead of going onto the bench, because you'd rather have your gun players on field for as long a period of time as you can. There has been training reports pre-Christmas that LDU has been working on his forward craft. We know we love midfielders that kick goals, but also these power plays in the forward line. I can see him loading up with a Zerha, with a Jai Simpkin, rotating through there, and having one of those players in the mid at a centre bounce and the other one in the forward line. There could be a sneaky chance that LDU actually gets DPP earlier on in the season, because we know the sample size for the first 6 games is only 6 games of 35%. Once you get to that 12 and 18 point in the season, it's a lot more games that you need to have 35% across versus just that first stop.
If LDU gets forward status, oh my God, that would be absolutely insane. A forward mid primo like this guy with that killer awesome buy. Oh boy, that would be incredible.
Definitely something to track in the preseason, but stay tuned to all the training reports and even the preseason games as well.
Yeah. Moving on to the other Port Adelaide player that Big J sort of highlighted before, it is the new captain of the Port Adelaide Football Club, Connor Rozee. Look, this guy, he's also one, as we mentioned with Butters, someone who's really damaging in front of the big sticks, who's really classy, and sometimes it's really important to be able to use your class in areas of need and areas of real importance. You don't necessarily want, someone like Rozee to be maybe playing on a wing or around stoppages all the time. You definitely want them in the dangerous positions, and this guy has shown that when he moves forward mid, then he's certainly capable of hitting the big sticks and generating some goals, because I don't think their forward line really is the best. I think it does depend on these mids rotating through there.
Yeah, and we saw how influential him and Butters were in that forward line. Then we're not talking goal pocket, right? We're not talking right in the middle square. We're talking these high half forward players. The ball gets bounced, they run to the midfield, they run to the goal line, kind of depending on where we need. As we said with Zack Butters, Port Adelaide have a lot of guys that can rotate. Rozee will be one of them. Yeah. Early DPP, or at least be around the mark for it come round 6.
Yeah, I think a lot of it will depend on how Ollie Wines performs this year. I know last year wasn't a great year for him, but if he can recapture some of the form that got him to win the Brownlow a few years ago, I think that will also give Hinkley an ability to push Rozee forward more. So it all lands on Wines' shoulders. We then move to Sam Docherty, who I could not believe it, is mid-only.
Yeah, it's pretty crazy, huh? We saw in points, especially in the second half of the season, where Docherty was almost lining up on CBAs. I was like, mate, what's my defender who I want to get big scores in here trying to tag people? We know with Zach Williams, we know even with Sam Walsh coming back, Carlton's going to play around with a little bit with their midfield makeup and see what works for them. I really think that Sam Docherty could get put back into the defense, at least for periods of time. We're not talking entire games. This is the big thing we're trying to stress for today. You only need 35%. I reckon he can get that, and I reckon he might be DPP come round 6 or round 12.
Absolutely. I know, as you mentioned, Carlton did have a few injuries in their midfield, probably a bit of necessity for Docherty to play more in the midfield. I think with a healthy, fit and firing midfield now, the reason for him to play up there is probably gone, and he's more likely to go back to his original position where we've known him for so long, playing off halfback. Yes, there is now, there's Sard, obviously, and Williams, but I still think Sam Docherty, with all of his experience, there's definitely a room for him. I think there's someone else that might unfortunately take a fall. Could be Sard, who actually ends up with less responsibility. So again, that's the problem with Carlton. They've got so many gun players all over the ground, and that's why everyone expects them to finish really high on the ladder in 2024. So we're going to have to really keep a close eye on these Blues. Yeah, we then move to our next player, Luke Parker.
Yeah, it's somewhat a bit trippy. I remember a couple of years ago where randomly out of the blue, he was available as the DPP player come round 6 and basically carried my entire season. I had him early. A lot of people, I got him round 6, maybe others got him round 8 or 9. And having that extra premium in the forward line really helped. We know Adams has come in. We know James Jordan's there. We know Warner and Goulden are there as well in that midfield, and they just can't keep all these players in the same spot. As Parker gets older, Joe, we've seen him play a bit more forward, maybe high half forward, but he's that selfless player that would rather just be good for the team than try and push other younger players out of spot. And that probably leads to him playing a bit more forward and then DPP early.
100%, I agree with that. And we sort of saw it last year. I mean, he started off the year really high CBAs, but towards the end of the season, he was getting down to like 50% CBAs and sometimes even a bit below. So he's definitely, as the season went on his older body, he's 30. He's going to be 32 this year. So you can't keep that sort of high pace at the coalface forever. And he's a great clubman. He's a champion of that club. He knows when it's time for him to step aside, especially, as you say, with such incredible young talent coming up behind him. I think he'll have no problems. And we can't forget Callum Mills still exists as well. I know he does some stupid shit in the off season to cause himself to injure his shoulder and stuff, but he's still around and he's still a very good midfielder. So I can understand why Luke Parker might very well get some forward status next year.
Yeah, and I think it's going to happen early if it happens at any time.
Yeah, I agree. We then move to our next player. It is one Jordan De Goey. I can't believe this guy's 27 years old. Just goes to show you how much time he's spent mucking off the field.
Yeah, so has been touted for a bit more mid-time, and that's why he's got mid status now. But I think with all the rotations and the way that Collingwood's going, he's got to play some more forward time. I think it might happen closer on maybe around round 12. We might see him move into that forward DPP status, but it's definitely going to happen. They'd rather have him on field, similar to an LDU, like I was saying before, with getting these stronger players, having them on field all the time versus resting. If he can keep his body right, he's going to spend some forward status there. They can't keep him in the midfield the entire time, and we'll get that mid DPP. I just don't know how many people are going to actually select him in Supercoach, Joe.
Yeah, I probably won't either, personally speaking. And it'll be interesting to see how much time he spends forward. I know they added Lockie Schultz there because they've just replaced him for Ginnivan. But so that's one out, one in. So that doesn't necessarily mean that De Goey is going to get less time. It's if they added Schultz in addition to having Ginnivan, then I'd probably say it's more unlikely. But the fact of the matter is, it was one player out, one player in, doesn't change De Goey's likelihood of going forward. So if anyone is thinking maybe Schultz's acquisition might stuff up the DPP, I don't think that will be an issue in that respect. Plus, he's such a good goal kicker. We saw that incredible goal that he kicked in that grand final against the Brisbane Lions. Admittedly, though, it did start from the middle. So, look, I think a lot of it comes down to what his conditioning is like coming off the grand final win. We know historically he hasn't been the most professional type of player. Whether or not coming off the grand final, he's able to come back and hit ripping form early, or whether it means that he might have to start as a forward as he builds up his fitness. That's fingers crossed, I guess, in that respect. We could get him earlier as a forward status in that respect then. We then move to...
It's a bit of a sneaky one, this one.
Karl Amon. Nothing sneaky about that chin, though, and that jawline. Very prominent. I'm applauding you, Karl Amon. I'm applauding you. I don't have either of those things. Let me just save myself here. I put this guy on there. As you guys would have seen in my team reveal, I have him in my midfield because I completely trust that this guy is going to get defender status come round 6, and then I'll be able to flip him there. By all reports, he is training and playing with the backline. They're moving Giath out of the backline, playing him on a wing. They want to use his line-breaking ability, his speed, and his good ball use coming out of the back line to sort of repel attacks. And he has a great tandem with James Sicily. He has scored really well in that role. I see him averaging about 100 or so and chilling around at D6 for me.
Yeah, and if you guys don't believe us, have a look at his scores in the later half of last season. There were a few games there where he did quite well, and that's kind of why we're thinking, hey, he's going to take that alongside the training reports.
Yeah, exactly. So those are the mids that could get DPP. We don't think there were any relevant rucks that could get DPP, so we're going to skip them and we're going to go now to the forward line. Forward players right now who could see a change of position. And we starting off with your favorite St Kilda player, Mitch Owens.
Oh, mate, Jack Steele, eat your heart out. I wish I had Mitchito Owens in Supercoach last year because he went from 250k up to 500 very quick. We saw last year he went and played some ruck time. But as Jake from Saints TV has told me, and I've said to you guys on the stream as well, Mitchito Owens has bulked up. He's got his running better. He's just playing better. And he's set to play some real midfield time next year or this year.
That's right. He's a big boy. You saw it coming. I know you didn't toot your horn there, which is really impressive. I remember in our discussions pre-season last year, you were onto this guy last year. You predicted that he was going to have a rise. You didn't back your gut, and now you're eating your heart. But this year around, we're seeing it. I think everyone respects this guy's talent. It's that contested work that he has, the ability to win a one-on-one ball. And get his contested possessions up. So he's already scoring quite decently, playing one of the worst roles in football. I can only imagine how much better his scoring will be when he gets some more time on the ball. So if he can get some time in the midfield early and show some great results, it's really possible he could get it on the first round of DPP.
Yeah, something we saw as well. Remember when he had his first season of AFL, he actually spent a bit of time in like a tagging midfield role as well. So second year last year, he was playing that ruck forward, but his first year in AFL, he was a mid-only player, and he was playing that position. So he's done it before. It's not like it's brand new for him.
Correct, and a lot of his forward craft and a lot of his forward time was really forced upon him because St Kilda were decimated by injury in their forward.
Last year they had no one
at the start. Yeah, they had nobody. It was Mitchito or bust really. So a lot of chance that he could get DPP early on this year. We then move to the next player, and that is Josh Rachele. Rachele, I don't know how you spell it, how you say it, but it was a toss-up between Rachele or Rankin, because I think that one of these two guys, if not maybe both of them, will be rotating through that midfield. We've seen heaps of teams really implement that, getting that small forward involved in the play. I think Papley in Sydney were like the first iteration of that, trying to get that spark out of the midfield. And we've seen Adelaide. We picked Rachele over Rankin for this exercise today because we saw Rachele actually have some times where he had decent amounts of CBAs. One round, he had like 50% CBAs. So he has a decent size. He's around 180 centimeters, and he's certainly got X factor. We reckon if Adelaide are to take the next step forward, they have more players rotating through there, and we think it could be Josh Rachele.
Yeah, I think Adelaide as well is at the point where they kind of know where their established older players are at and where they play, but they really need some more youth kind of playing through that midfield, the back line, and into the forward line as well. So Rachele is definitely one of those players, and as Joe says, doesn't have to play a lot of time in the midfield, but 35% is pretty gettable.
Yeah, it is. They're 2-1 paced. I think they noticed that. You know, Dawson, Crouch, Laird, Sloan.
Even Berry and
Berry. Yeah, like it's very one-paced. And having a guy like Rachele that can burst out, break a line, do something, exciting, I can definitely see that happening in 2024. We then move to the next player, and that is Zack Fisher. He's in his Carlton colours here in this picture. The AFL haven't updated it, but he's well and truly a kangaroo.
Yeah, not happy. He needs a big kangaroo tattoo on his arm so everyone knows what team he plays at. Zack Fisher did have some games last year where he was playing in the back line for Carlton, and I think that's where North Melbourne kind of got the spark and was like, hey, mate, we've got a club for you to come and play at. Come and play this role for us. You're into the team. So North Melbourne, he has been training in that back line, has been used as kind of the other distributor alongside Sheasel and McKercher. Looks like where he's going to play for the whole year, and then goes from forward to forward DPP with defense as well. So we know how good Sheasel was in there. A few people have picked up Zack Fisher, maybe not as a keeper to start, but definitely is a good cash cow.
Yeah, I mean, look, if he averages 90-odd in that forward line playing as a defender, he might end up being a keeper.
Yeah.
With how crap our forward line options are this year. So, Yeah, fingers crossed for you that he works out well. He is a silky player. Just a question of
We
whether
know
how
how
many players can you
we
have
know
back
how
there? You got him. Go for it.
yeah. We know how well like a Zeeble and a Hall in previous years have actually scored for us as well in the North
Yes.
Melbourne backline that you assume a lot of the ball's going to be down there. So these guys are all going to get it.
Yeah, so you got Fisher now, McKercher, and Sheasel. So it used to be a duo, now it's a trio sharing the ball down there. All right, we then move to the next forward option, and that is Jack Billings, who is a Saint in this photo, but he has moved across to the Melbourne Demons. He's more of a winger, I think. And I think that's probably where they're going to play him over there at Melbourne. They love to use their wings. And he's someone that can play on a wing and then rotate through the forward line, high half forward, I think. So Jack Billings, he's got some attributes that will see him, I think, get some early game time over there at Melbourne. They lost James Jordan, who they like to use a bit out there. They have recruited through the draft. They have picked up a winger there, but I would imagine that they would give priority to Jack Billings, who is in the prime of his career, wouldn't you think?
Yeah, I think so. And it probably happened in the early seasons as well. So probably round 6, we're looking at this. Maybe it just means that you get to keep Jack Billings on a few more weeks than what you thought instead of being that cash cow that you trade. But definitely he's going to get DPP. If you look at his stats and where he lined it up from last year and the year before, majority of it was wing. And obviously that counts as being DPP and that 35% of what we're looking for.
Yeah. And the good thing is you get a free look at him in round 0 when he plays against the Swans. So there you go. Some free intel for you. We then move to our last player in the forward line. It is a North boy. There you go. Perfect way to round things up.
I feel like we did this for our forward players to look out for as well and our rookie list as well. So Charlie Comben is forward selectable at what? Just over 200K, but looks to be playing key back for North Melbourne. If he plays key back, he's obviously not lining up in the forward line, so he's going to get that defender status. What that means for us is it's a really good swing for some other players in that position as well. And it probably means you can keep him on your side a little bit longer, or at least be some good cover alongside a few other players. So we'll wait and see what it's like. But if he plays, which it looks like he will be, 100% round 6, he'll get DPP.
So we could end up with 2 North Melbourne forwards that end up with forward defensive DPP.
Hey, it happened with Aaron Hall and Jack Zeeble that year. So, it could happen again with Fisher and Comben.
Gee, this North Melbourne team, man, they love to have these forward defensive DPP options. But hey, and with that, guys, brings our discussion, our prediction into all the players, the relevant players who we think are going to get DPP across each of the lines, mostly, hopefully, around round 6.
Yeah, it's a tricky one. With our forward line being so hard to predict, it's almost like pick 2 premiums and then go cash cows in the rest to try and get those value picks and get a leg up like I did with Parker a few years ago as a selectable player and have that money ready to go.
Absolutely. And so, guys, if you like what you saw here today, make sure you drop us a like. And if you're new, a subscription will greatly help the growth of our channel, which we have seen some tremendous growth in the last few days. Much thanks to you guys. Really appreciate you jumping aboard and helping us spread our wings.
Yeah, 100%. We've also got our Twitter page as well, at Bout Centre. And then we're trying to grow the Facebook page, Joe. So we're going to have some more exclusive Facebook-only content up on there soon, so give us a like.
Yeah, make sure you hit that notification bell to make sure that you don't miss any of the content that we're continuously pumping out over this pre-season, because here at the Centre Bounce, we do the hard works that you don't have to.